Welcome back to the Ciel Power Podcast. I have a special guest with me today. I'm super excited. This is Farah Ahmad. Farah is a green building expert. She is a licensed architect, a LEED accredited professional, and she's working on developing the standards that will be eventually, hopefully, fingers crossed, that all of our homes will be built around. Farah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me here, Scott. I'm excited to be here.
Farah, I'm so excited to have you here with us. Let's just jump right into it.
A lot of you are working from home today. You know, energy bills are going up. Utility rates, they aren't fixed. We don't know what's happening. And we understand that our energy bills don't tell us where consumption is coming from. They don't break down consumption by category. So in order for us to really understand what that's happening, we need to understand our systems. And so we want to pay a lot of attention to insulation because it's the major blanket of our home, right? Mm-hmm. Now, installing insulation, it is best handled by a professional. But there are certain key aspects that we need to focus in on when it comes to insulation. And that first aspect, visual inspection, is something that we as homeowners can take on. Now, something I want to focus in on is the type of insulation and how it's installed. Now, insulation specifically, let's say bad insulation, which is a common application in homes, the way it's installed makes a huge difference. Now, we can see that sometimes insulation is not necessarily filling the studs the way it should be. Sometimes we see all these gaps. Sometimes it's not really taking up the entire frame of your studs. And if you see that, that's a huge red flag, as I'm sure you know, Scott. So something we need to pay attention to is how that the insulation is installed. If you see any missing gaps, you need to make sure that that's filled. Frame your insulation properly so that the entire width from stud to stud has insulation. The other issue here is that when we have compression of insulation, right? So if insulation is too tight, the air pockets that are in that insulation, they're not effective any longer. The insulation isn't performing to the best R value, right? So we have too tight insulation, we have too compressed insulation, and we have missing insulation. We need to be aware of that so that our insulation can get the best R value possible.
So if you're a homeowner, and where is a good place to start to try to understand what shape your insulation is in? So most homeowners, their wall is enclosed. They can't see the insulation that's in the wall. Where would you recommend that they try to get an understanding of what shape their insulation is in?
Great question. And we really want to look, and this is an issue for existing homes where walls are sealed up, but the attic is a great location. I always say start with the attic if you have one. Your roof exposure is your largest surface area on your building envelope, right? So if we can get access to our attics and take a look at some of the insulation that's already exposed that is accessible, that's a great place to start. Our basement walls also have insulation that's also exposed, so that's also a good place to start. So with our attic insulation, you can easily go up, take a look at the floor of your attic, and since that's a really good barrier between the rest of your home and where heat escapes at the top of your home, take a look at the flooring of your attic and see if the insulation is installed from stud to stud and see what insulation is also there.
Okay.
Something I also want to point out, if you live in an older home that's, say, prior to the 70s, sometimes homeowners will think that you need to throw away old insulation because of an asbestos issue, but really asbestos is more of a problem if you're touching the insulation and disrupting it. But if the insulation is just laying there, we can actually layer that insulation with another piece of insulation and increase the R value.
Wow. So I'm a homeowner. I'm up in my attic. I'm looking at my insulation. It looks like it's from stud to stud, so it looks like I'm good there. Now I'm looking at how deep my insulation is, and it's coming up, just about to the top of my stud. Does that mean I'm in good shape? Does that mean I should maybe consider adding more? I know being in this company, building codes, we talked a moment about your involvement in building codes. The energy efficiency codes have changed, and now it looks like we should have more insulation than potentially just reaching the top of the joist.
Right.
Can you speak to that?
Yes, the easiest hack for that is to just take a ruler, place it down on the floor of your attic, and measure up and see what that's coming out to. And all of your insulation is rated at an R value per inch. So you can do some quick math, figure out your R value per inch, and does it meet that thickness? The energy codes specifically prescribe all over the board around an R30 for residential applications, and so that's kind of your guideline or your baseline marker for where your insulation should be and how deep it should be. So again, depending on your insulation type, if it's a bad insulation, you're going to get somewhere around R3.3 or so per inch. Do your quick math, figure out if the depth is correct or not.
Okay, and how deep should that be?
So if we're looking at an R3.3 and you're trying to meet an R30, that's going to be roughly just below 10 inches of insulation.
Okay, there you go. Is there anything else about insulation that homeowners should be thinking about, that they should be aware of?
Yeah, so there's a really good DIY hack, and that's using a thermal imaging gun, which homeowners can purchase for a few $100 at their local Home Depot to get some basic information about where there is thermal bridging and hot spots and cold spots. So, as you know, Scott, these thermal imaging guns can give you an analysis of, if you've got a blue color in your wall, that's where you're getting a lot of cold air coming in, rushing in, or air leaking out. It's not well insulated. And so if we take simple, next Christmas, ask for a thermal imaging gun, shoot around your home and see if you can figure out where it's insulated or where it's not and where air is leaking out. It's a quick diagnostic tool.
That's one of the tools that our professionals are using every day when they're out doing energy audits on people's homes is the thermal imaging camera. It's showing us temperature as color, and we're able to really get a clear understanding of how the insulation is performing in the walls. And to your point, the technology is really advancing in that area, and now there's even cameras that go right on the end of your iPhone that you can use to understand how the thermal benefits of how your insulation is performing. So
Exactly. And I think an energy auditor can take your baseline analysis that you do at home and give you the most specific results based on your experience as well.
yeah,
Kind of take the diagnostic results that you've received and tell you what the solution is.
yep. And if that seems outside of your comfort zone, you can certainly have one of the professionals come and do an energy audit at your home. No matter where you're living, the organization Building Performance Institute, they have professionals across the country that can come out and visit your home, and just make sure when you schedule the appointment that their representatives do have thermal imaging cameras with them, and you can get that professional opinion that Farah mentioned.
Exactly. Yep.
All right. Anything else we want to hit on before we wrap up on insulation?
I think we're good.
All right.
Yeah.
So remember, if we want to have your insulation running from stud to stud, you want to have at least 10 inches of insulation in your attic, and that depends a little bit on your climate zone, where
Correct.
what the weather is like where you live, because
Correct.
there's probably people that'll be watching this from all over the place.
Exactly. Yep.
So there's a website that you can check to see how much insulation what's recommended in your attic.
Yep.
So
And I'll just speak to that really
please.
quickly. Just take a look at your town's local building energy code. It's on your local government's website, and you can find the full version. Just read your code language. Take a look at the R value table. That will give you the R value per inch, and it'll tell you for your climate zone specifically from 1 through 6 what your R value should be for your roof.
There you have it.